Alrighty. Well, welcome everybody to the first official Chalk Talk from Lumos Learning. We're really excited to get this initiative off the ground. We basically want to have a 30-minute support session where teachers and educators can come together, ask any questions, share concerns, but also share their implementation stories. How are they using the tool? And we'd love to share additional tips, best practices, maybe new features, things like that. It's going to be every week at Thursday at 2 p.m. And we're really excited to get the ball rolling. My name is Vivek, and I'm a product manager at Lumos Learning. And here with me today is Kelly Stratton.
Hi, everyone.
Kelly, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So, my name is Kelly, like Vivek said. I'm the customer success manager here at Lumos Learning. I come from a background in education. I taught for 21 years, and I love being able to show teachers and administration the best ways to use our tools to really help their students succeed in the classroom.
Well, we're really lucky to have you, and I'm excited to kind of talk about our discuss or get started with our discussion today. So usually when we start about beginning things or beginning the year, we think about a bang, but honestly, a lot of the times it's just beginning the year with a sigh. And I think it's time that we change that a little bit, right?
Yeah, and I feel like, I don't know about you, but this school year has already gone so fast. And there's so many challenges that happen at the beginning of the school year. You have new students. As an administrator, you a lot of times have new teachers. There's a lot of struggles just getting everyone ready to go at the beginning of the year. So today we're going to be talking about some practical ways to start strong in the school year.
Yeah, and before we get started, a quick disclaimer is, all of the stats that we're providing today have been well researched, and we'll make sure to send you links to different articles that we used in a blog post that's going to come out tomorrow, along with a recording of today's discussion.
Great. So, our first big question, how do you know where your students are on the first day of school? Is it a gut feeling? Is it that first homework assignment? Are you speaking to past teachers? Or are you just silently panicking at your desk?
Yeah, silently panicking sounds pretty realistic. But I mean, a lot of research does show that students can lose up to 35% of what they've learned in the previous grade level over the summer. So we really need to remember that the summer slide is real. It's not just a myth or something that teachers are ranting about. There's hardcore research to show that there's been a decent loss of, let's say, up to 35% of math skills being lost or up to
hmm
25% in reading.
Yeah, and it's really hard, especially when students are coming back after over 2 months of being home, doing camps, being on vacations, being with family. They sometimes forget how to behave, first of all. So, having to be
Yeah.
back in a traditional classroom is step one. Having to get back to that structure, not to mention, I know with my three kids, having to wake up that early in the morning. So, a teacher at the beginning of the school year is not only trying to figure out where their students are on day one, but also trying to get them back in the habit of having a structured environment.
And the start of the year can be hard for multiple reasons. You're spending 4 to 6 weeks reteaching things. You're figuring out how to measure what the students remember versus what they forgot. You have pressure from your administrators of pacing things at a certain rate, or you're
hmm
just confused with all the new rosters with the new testing or classroom routines, new students. There's a lot to balance.
There really is. And a lot of it is teachers feel like they're reteaching everything that students should have remembered. And it's really hard when you come into a new school year, and most states have this from day one. We're teaching the new standards, right? So somehow you have to try and balance reteaching material that students might have forgotten about while balancing the new stuff that needs to be taught this school year.
No, completely. And we asked that question of can we start testing from day one? And there are a lot of people who may feel unsure about where the students are, so you don't really know what to ask. Traditional
hmm
quizzes may not have the same ability to analyze gaps. And like we talked about those pressures from admin about pacing, they may not align with the reality of your classroom. And there's so
Right.
many other nuances that go into it.
Yeah, and not to mention what student is going to want to come in on day one and have to sit and take a test.
Yeah,
So it's a
exactly.
lot to balance for sure. And so that's why we wanted to start this Chalk Talk because we want to make this interactive and we want to know your thoughts. So we're going to be posting these as polls on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook.
The first question we really want to ask is, how do you figure out what your students remember from last year? What methods do you currently use, if any, and what do you think is the best approach when it comes to this, to asking or figuring out what they remember?
Exactly. And that's one thing we really want to help you with here at Lumos is finding solutions to these challenges. So what is working in schools? Do you find a beginning of the year diagnostic is the way to go? We have done some research and we have found that diagnostics can help teachers identify gaps 2 to 3 weeks faster than traditional testing.
Yep. And the second question we wanted to ask was whether students forget more math or if they forget more reading over the summer. And what are some of the patterns that you've observed in your school?
Exactly. So our goal is to start helping guide that conversation. Imagining if students didn't start behind, but started ready to go. How can we assist with that? What are some things we can do both in and out of the classroom to help assist students in retaining that information over the summer and helping to prevent a little bit of that summer slide?
And the last question that we'd like to ask is what's harder? Is teaching new content harder or reteaching the old content? Where do we find that the students are paying more attention? And what seems to be a little bit more challenging for the teachers? And like Kelly said
Exactly.
earlier, all of this is going to be shared on LinkedIn and different social media platforms. So please share with your colleagues, get their thoughts as well. And we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
So just a couple numbers that Kelly was going over earlier. If you do take diagnostic assessments, you can identify gaps 2 to 3 weeks sooner than most quizzes. Teachers report about 33% less time spent when the entire class is taking these diagnostics and pairing them with targeted practice. We also see that students who receive that early diagnostic remediation are 25 to 30% more likely to reach grade level proficiency by winter break. And that's, I think, a really, really important statistic, especially when you're trying to get students ready for a state standardized test. If you need to take two benchmarks, one's going to be in winter, one's going to be in the spring, but the students aren't even at grade level by winter, it's really difficult to expect decent results in that first diagnostic test. And it's
Right.
programs like our Back to School Refresher, where you follow that model of give a diagnostic, analyze the gaps, and provide personalized remediation where you see real success. Awesome. Well, we want to take a second to see if the audience has any questions. I see that we've been joined by several people today. If does anybody have any questions? Maybe James Madison, Jason Lee. Sorry to call out on people. I feel like I'm in.
Oh, and I see we have Knowledge Works here too. Very cool.
That's awesome. Well, Kelly, I do have a couple questions for you.
Absolutely.
After we provide a diagnostic, what would be the best way to approach grouping some of those students who've completed the test?
That's a great question. So one thing I always talk about in my trainings is looking at that lesson details report. My favorite way to look at it is looking at that standard view. Then what I like to do is look at the overall proficiency per standard and then group my students into smaller groups based on their proficiency levels. This is a great way to pull out groups with the younger grades or have students working together in the older grades, either using the digital workbooks or our TED books. Then while you're working with those students individually, that's where I recommend other students working at their desks using their remedials that were automatically assigned after the benchmark.
Okay, got it. So you're essentially saying take the diagnostic and then go into lesson details. You're going to see all of the results, then switch to the standard view and then assign specific remedials based on that particular standard for
And
the
that's,
students as
yes.
well.
And that's where I'd work with the students because once you give that diagnostic, students are working independently. But then as the teacher, it's always important as well to pull students and individually work with them in a small group or large group setting as well.
Cool. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess the first thing that came to my mind when I was thinking about diagnostics was like parents and how they kind of approach all of it and how they would feel. So, how
Hmm.
do I kind of explain that I'm going to be testing the students in the first week and it's all about summer slide? And how do I do all of it without sounding negative or without getting much pushback?
I think it's really important to really have a positive spin on everything. As a teacher, your job, right, is to educate the students, but it's also to keep a positive environment. Now, if students aren't doing well, that's okay. The point of our program is to meet students where they're at. So we want to make sure everyone knows that they're successful no matter what grade level they're at. And the purpose of our program is to help meet students where they are and help assist them to getting where they need to be. So I guess it's all about how you approach things as an educator and always make sure you're keeping it positive because not every student is going to be at the same level at all times.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the finishing mark may be the same, but the starting point is always going to be different, and that journey to get
Exactly.
there is always different.
And
Yeah.
the past's always different, right? So.
Yep. Yep. And what do I tell parents if their child has scored low scores on their diagnostic?
I would assure them that while working with the remediation, that the program is going to meet them where they're at because it is adaptive. So another great thing about the remedial program is, first of all, it has the AI tutor that is going to work with the student. But the other great thing is it does go into a deep remediation. So if a student, let's say we have a fifth grader starting to work through remediation in the standards, and they're just not able to process that standard yet. And again, that's okay. The program will drop them up to 2 grade levels lower down into third grade on that standard, and then it'll work with the student to get them back where they need to be. And of course, you as the teacher will be working with them as well, finding out exactly what the issues are and how you can use your skills as the educator to work with the students as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, the deep remediation part I love. And I also think it's really important to stress that it doesn't matter. It's a diagnostic test. This isn't like a grade level that or something that's going to go into your report card. So relax, like it's okay. It's not the worst thing to score low on a diagnostic. Um,
Exactly. And Vivek, it looks like we have a question for you under products. So KnowledgeWorks said, we have an issue where a student was able to reset their password and delete another student's information. Can the student's account be retrieved and how can this be prevented from happening in the future?
that is a great question. So to read it again, where the student was able to reset their password and delete another student's information. So can the student account? Oh, that's so to understand this correctly, let's say it's Bob and Charlie. Bob logged into Charlie's account and deleted all of Charlie's information.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Interesting.
Good
Um,
afternoon. I'm Mrs. Carey. Thank you for
Hi.
taking our question. Sorry, my
Of
camera
course.
is not working. Something happened with my settings, but I will kind of give the scenario. Hold on one moment. Give the scenario of what happened. So once the student, it was just, this is reported to me. The student was changed her password because an email was sent to Mrs. Richards' email address saying that the student had changed their password. We didn't know that students could because Lumos created all of our passwords on the front end.
Hmm.
So that's the first thing that happened. And then another student's account was deleted. And we're thinking, we don't know if it's the same student that was tech savvy, was having, we don't know. So we were just kind of asking.
That's a really unique situation. I do think that there may be something our support team can do to help retrieve some of that information. A problem is once we delete something, then a lot of that info is no longer accessible, but hopefully there's maybe an archive option that went through. But I'll make sure that somebody from the support team reaches out to you shortly after this call. And then if we need to collect additional information, we can set up a one-on-one with you to understand what's going on. But I really feel bad for that one student. I mean, if he's
I
got
know.
made progress, then that's a really terrible
Yeah.
situation to be in.
And I actually just had support message me. If you could do me a favor in the chat, put the name of the student, they can absolutely retrieve that and we can make sure that we handle this for you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay. And I'll be reaching out to you personally as well to follow up and make sure this is taken care of.
And thank you for the question. We're very excited to get our first official question
First
from,
official.
yeah, great. Cool.
Great.
Well, to round out some of the other questions that I had, what if a student doesn't finish a diagnostic test?
Excellent question. So one thing we do have built in is our pause button. Now, one thing to keep in mind when taking our diagnostics, please let students know, do not X out, do not hit the back button. There is a pause button in the top right corner, with the exception of Alabama. Alabama, yours is in the bottom left-hand corner. When you click on this pause button, it's going to pop up with either resume test or save and exit. You're going to click save and exit. It's the blue bar. It's going to automatically save all of the student's work. Then next time the student logs in, they'll click resume on that test and they'll be able to pick up exactly where they left off.
That's perfect. That's great. And I
Yes,
think it's also worth mentioning that the diagnostic test, while it is great to have that formal test setting, it's really not meant to add that pressure, that timed pressure of you got to finish within a stipulated number of hours or anything like that. It's totally fine to split it up into 2 or 3 sessions. I mean, a
absolutely.
lot of people feel it's you gotta emulate the exact like the conditions of the actual test, but I think that's something better suited for a practice test, not that beginning of the year refresher.
No, I absolutely agree. I always tell customers to give the back to school refresher at their pace, at least just one section for each. And then, first one, start to get going with what it's going to look like. And then the second practice test, that's when we really kind of try and lock in, pretend it's the real test so that it's not, that automatic stress starting in August, September.
Right, right. And the last question I have, and this may be a little obvious, but it has come up before, so I did want to address it.
Yeah.
With IEPs or 504 plans receive accommodations on diagnostics?
Yes, so students do receive IEP accommodations. I always tell people give students whatever they're going to give for the test. But again, like I said, with the back to school refresher, it's more important that they get through it and they understand it. So do what's best for you and your school. Also, we do have our IEP features on the teacher screen. And I'm actually going to pull up my screen now. Was that your last question, Vivek? Because I do want to walk through how to assign that back to school for anyone that doesn't know as well.
It was, yes, please. Let
Perfect.
me stop sharing and give you control. Okay, you should be able to share.
Perfect. So I always like to point out our IEP features. As a parent that does have a child with an IEP, I really love that we have this. I think it's so important to make sure it's super inclusive to all students. So over on the left-hand side at the bottom, you're going to see, I'm just clicking buttons. You're going to see where it says My Students. When I click on My Students, you now have access to each student and a little pencil that says Edit. When I click this button, I now have access to all the IEP features that are offered to students. To use them, I would just click on them and then click Update. Once I've done this, this is now going to apply to anything I assign from here on out. The only way to turn it back off would be to turn it off manually. So you can rest assured that once it's been assigned to your student, everything moving forward will have those IEP accommodations for your student.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So since we've been talking about the back to school refresher, I thought for anyone that needs a refresher, I'm going to show you all how to assign it and also that report I was talking about, the standards report in lesson details. So I'm on our home screen. Again, all the important information you're going to need is on the left-hand side on that blue bar. When I click on my lessons, this is where all the good stuff is, our practice tests, our digital workbooks. And then when I scroll down to the bottom, you're going to find our back to school refresher. So here you'll see back to school refresher. Now it's going to look different for each state, the name of it, but it's going to be in the same location for each state. Here I'm going to see, let's see why it's,
Oh, it looks like we're using a demo account.
it was working earlier. There we go. Okay. Scroll back up. Oh, I wonder why it's locked there. So this is the back to school refresher. And here you're going to see that info button. This is going to show us all the information that's going to be addressed on this test. So here we're going to see the standards that are covered, and we're going to see the question types. Now, one really great thing about this program as well is that it's going to have all different types of questions. A lot of my students, and I was middle school and I still had this trouble, was how to answer these specific questions, like a multiple choice, multiple answer, and a drag and drop question. So this is a great way to kind of start the ball rolling on how to use all these different question types. Now, to assign this test, I'm going to use this button here. This is what the assign button would look like. So you would do that here. It would have that little less than sign, and it's going to assign your test. Let me just pull up a different account because this one was working before and now it's not. I want you guys to be able to see what it truly looks like.
I could pull that up.
Yeah, if this one doesn't, then I'll have you do that, but I think we should be good.
Does this look okay?
Beautiful. Oh, you got one up?
I did, yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so going into my lessons, scrolling back down to the bottom. Perfect. So now you're going to go to that less than sign where it says refresher cat 1. Perfect. And I always like to say the less than sign assigns the lesson. It's my like teacher way of remembering it. And everything is automatically set up for you. The title's there, description, your students should automatically be selected. Of course, you can always change the description if you like. I was the teacher that would always put like a little smiley face so that they weren't too stressed out. And then you would just click that blue button on the right-hand side that says assign. Once you've done this, it's automatically pushed into your student portals and ready to go. And again, once students have taken this test, the program will automatically assign remedials based on their test scores. You as the teacher do not have to do anything. It is automatically assigned for them. But the last thing I did want to show you is how to read that lesson details report. So Vivek, if you could go under reports to lesson details, beautiful. And then if you can find one that has been taken,
Oh, I think again we're in a demo account, so we won't be able to see the data here.
let me see if I can pull one. But let me talk through it while I see if I can find one for us. So the most important thing is going to where it toggles between question view and lesson view. Do you see where that is?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. So you're gonna, or I'm sorry, standard view. So you're gonna click on standard view. And then what that's going to do is it's going to break it down per standard on how many questions were in each standard. And then you're going to be able to see how students did as a whole. Let's see if this one has it for me. Beautiful. All right, Vivek, I'm up. Perfect. So here's an example of a lesson that has been given to a student. And again, these are not real students. We would never share any actual student information here, but this is a demo account. And so like Vivek just showed you, here we have question view, and now we go into standard view. Like I said, this is my favorite one to look at because it's now showing you how many questions were assigned per standard. So here you'll see I have this specific standard for New Jersey, and my overall proficiency for my class was 28.89. Now, this is where I would go in and either pull my students into small groups, bring them up to work with them on the specific standard, or teach a whole group lesson on this specific standard. Now, moving forward, as we go through our chalk talks, one of the things we will be covering in the future will be our smartboard lessons. This is where I'm going to be addressing this again on how using this report is an excellent way to do a full class smartboard lesson when you're looking to raise proficiency on a specific standard.
Oh, this is awesome. So, in terms of what we went over just now, you showed us how to find the back to school refresher, how to assign it to the students. We learned previously how to make sure that the IEP accommodations are assigned to those particular students appropriately. And then you also showed us how to review the report in lesson details, and understand it from a question view, but mostly from a standard view, so that we can help these, or we can use these reports to help guide instruction, and how we can, divvy people up into smaller groups and how to plan different lessons and things like that. But that's
Absolutely.
great. Thank you so much.
Yes. And as we learned today from one of our colleagues, some districts are actually moving into doing report cards based on standards. So this is a great way to start getting familiar with how students are doing on the standards and just kind of keeping an eye on where they are throughout the school year.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we'll pause for maybe a second or two to see if there are any more questions from the audience. But we're really excited to continue this series over the next year or so. We're really hoping that we can get more teachers to join us. So please tell your friends, your colleagues, and other people to join. We'd love to have teachers share their implementation experiences. So if you've gotten any good results from using the Lumos product, then we'd love to hear how you implemented it in your school and how you're using it in your classroom. If you have any other questions, like we heard today from KnowledgeWorks, we'd love to use this as a platform to solve any of those issues that you have. So feel free to reach out to us via email. We'll be reaching out to all of the registrants from Samantha. We'll be sending an email to you guys with a recording of this post, with a little blog post that explains what we talked about. But you can also respond to enter into a raffle. So if you ask any questions, we have a raffle of $25 for a gift card. And if you choose to share an experience, then we would give you a $50 gift card. So we're really looking forward to growing this community. And I want to thank all of you for your time today and joining us for the first Chalk Talk.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Awesome.
wonderful day.
We look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.
Yes. Bye-bye.